The forest pulsed with ancient life. Towering trees with silver-veined leaves stretched toward the heavens, their trunks wide as cottages. Vines thick as ropes dangled from the canopy, swaying gently with the rhythm of the wind's hush. Sunlight pierced through the emerald ceiling in golden shafts, illuminating a world untouched by human hands. And at its heart lived the queen. She was a vision of wild majesty, tall and powerful, with a body that bore the curves and strength of the earth itself. Her thick, coiled hair was woven with feathers and leaves, and her eyes shimmered with hues of moss and moonlight. She wore a robe of woven furs and soft bark, but it was her presence that marked her as royalty, not clothing or crown. When she moved, the earth listened. They called her Queen Marena. She was no ordinary monarch. Her throne was a mossy stone ringed by wildflowers, and her palace was the forest itself. Birds sang at her arrival, and wolves trotted at her side like loyal knights. The rivers whispered her name, and even the wind seemed to shift when she walked among the trees. Marena ruled not with decree, but with deep magic and gentleness. Her touch could mend a wounded deer's leg. Her voice could calm the rage of a bear. She tended to the saplings with the same care she offered a nesting fox. In return, the forest bloomed around her, lush, vibrant, and alive with joy. Each morning, she walked barefoot through the dew-covered trails, her footsteps awakening flowers in her path. On this particular morning, a pair of blue jays circled above her, chirping a rapid warning. "They've smelled something strange," Marena murmured, pausing to lay her hand on the rough bark of an old elder tree. The tree responded with a low hum she could feel in her bones. Not danger, not yet, but a shift. She tilted her head, listening. Far off, beyond the edge of the forest, the wind carried something new. A metallic tang. The air felt tight, as if holding its breath. Marena narrowed her eyes. The forest never lied to her. It was telling her change was coming. She turned to her companions, Ashka, the silver-furred wolf who had led her pack for 10 winters, and Temi, the lynx with golden eyes and a tongue sharp as her claws. They, too, sensed the strangeness. Temi flicked her tail in agitation. "We should check the northern ridge," Marena said quietly. "Something stirs." They moved together, weaving through ferns and overgrown roots. Birds scattered ahead of them, and small creatures watched from the safety of the underbrush. It took little time to reach the overlook. From the cliff's edge, the queen stared out at the sky. Her heart skipped. It was there, a flash. A tear in the heavens. A streak of burning fire that wasn't fire at all, but metal and light. The object plummeted fast, vanishing behind the distant treetops in a distant crash that sent a rumble through the earth. Ashka growled low in his throat. Temi hissed. Marena stood still, her eyes on the horizon. It was not a star. Later that night, the forest grew quiet. Too quiet. The crickets stopped singing. Owls remained silent in their roosts. Even the frogs in the marsh held their voices. Marena sat beside a small fire, surrounded by her council, creatures of every kind. A great elk with crown-like antlers, a chorus of foxes, badgers, and crows. All watched her, waiting. "I don't know what fell from the sky," she said, her voice calm but firm, "but it wasn't born of this earth." A rustling came from the shadows. A hawk landed near the fire, wings ruffled, panting from the flight. "Machines," it croaked. "Shining ones. They walk like men but smell like poison." Marena's expression darkened. "Where?" The hawk pointed with its beak. "Northern edge. By the crystal river. They've torn the trees. Burned the grass." Gasps and growls rippled through the gathered animals. The queen raised her hand for silence. "So it begins," she murmured. She stood, tall and resolute. Her robe billowed as if stirred by an unseen breeze. Her voice echoed through the clearing, calm and filled with the weight of centuries. "We do not know them. We do not fear them. But if they seek to harm our forest, our home, they will learn this. We are not prey. We are the wild. And the wild protects its own." A chorus of howls answered her declaration, rising into the star-speckled sky. That night, Marena walked alone to the sacred spring, a pool that shimmered with starlight even in darkness. She knelt beside it and whispered to the water. "Show me," she said. The pool glowed brighter. Images formed in the ripples, strange beings in sleek armor, tall and cold, with glowing eyes and weapons that cracked the earth. They moved in formation, scanning, destroying, claiming. But then, one figure broke from the group. He stood apart, his face turned toward the sky. Toward her. Marena frowned. His energy was different. Not pure. Not cruel. Conflicted. "Who are you?" she whispered. The water stilled. Only silence answered her. But deep in the trees, far from where the queen knelt, a shadow stirred. An alien scout, tall and lithe, walked alone, haunted by the image of the forest queen. He had seen her from afar, just once, and the moment had pierced him like a beam of starlight through armor. He didn't understand why. Not yet. But the seed had been planted, and the forest had begun to fight back. The wind screamed through the northern forest. Trees cracked and toppled under the weight of machines that had no place in the natural world. Metal beasts with claws of fire tore through the roots, leaving black scars where once there was green. A haze of smoke settled over the canopy, choking the light from the sun. The invaders had come. They were not beasts of this world, nor men forged from earth and bone. They stood on two legs, towering and sleek, their skin hidden beneath armor that shimmered like oil in water. Their eyes glowed blue, cold and unfeeling. Their voices were not voices at all, but vibrations, a chorus of static and code that made the trees shudder. They moved in formation, scanning, analyzing, consuming. Queen Marena stood on a high ridge with Ashka and Temi at her sides, watching her kingdom burn. Her jaw clenched, her eyes glowing faintly with a rising power. "They do not understand what they've done," she murmured. "They don't care," Temi snarled, tail lashing. "They treat this land like stone. Like nothing feels." Ashka growled low, hackles raised. Below, dozens of animals scrambled through the undergrowth, fleeing the metal beasts. Some were caught, taken, caged. It was not conquest. It was harvest. "We strike tonight," Marena said, voice like thunder. From the shadows of the alien camp, Kale watched the firelight flicker off unfamiliar bark. He had been to countless worlds in his service to the Zern Collective, but never one that felt like this. The forest breathed. It whispered things he didn't understand. It pulled at his thoughts. And then there was her, the Earth Queen. He had seen her only for a moment from the ridge, but her image had not left his mind since. Not just her beauty, though she was radiant, but her presence. A force of nature. When she turned her eyes toward the invaders, even the air had seemed to recoil. And she had seen him. That one moment, their eyes had met across the distance, and Kale had felt something he hadn't known was possible. "Doubt." "What troubles you, Kale?" came a grating voice behind him. "Commander Drex." Kale turned, careful not to show the emotions twisting inside him. "Reconnaissance complete. There are organized life forms. Intelligent. Defensive." Drex snorted. "Primitive creatures. Soft-skinned and slow. Burn the nests, cage the specimens. The Queen will want this planet extracted within the week." Kale's jaw tightened. "There's more here than resources." Drex gave him a long, cold look. "You've gone soft on planetscapes, Kale. Perhaps we need someone with less sentimentality." Kale didn't respond. He turned back to the edge of the camp and watched the smoke drift into the stars. That night, the Queen struck. Silent as snowfall, she moved through the trees, her allies close behind. Owls scouted from above. A swarm of foxes wove through the shadows. Boars waited in the brush with tusks sharpened against stone. She raised her hand. Ashka growled once, then the forest exploded. Wolves lunged into the camp, tearing into the machines that walked like men. Vines shot from the ground, wrapping around legs, dragging them to the dirt. A panther leapt from the treetops, claws slicing metal. The invaders tried to respond, beams of energy searing through trees, but the forest moved too quickly. It was not a battle of guns and steel. It was a storm. 1,000 creatures united by one will. Queen Marena. She appeared like a storm cloud in the middle of the chaos, arms outstretched. From her fingertips poured green fire, ancient and alive. It twisted through the invaders, burning without heat, seeping into their circuits like smoke into lungs. Kale saw her, and he froze. She was not just beautiful, she was terrible. In the way a storm is terrible. In the way a mountain commands reverence. And yet, even amid the fury, he saw kindness in her eyes. When she looked at him, she paused. Kale raised his weapon, then lowered it. The wolves surrounded him, snarling. Marena lifted a hand. "No," she said. "This one holds no malice." Kale fell to his knees, chest rising and falling with breath he didn't know he was holding. "I don't want this," he said. "What they're doing, it's wrong. You must believe me." The queen stared at him, fierce and unblinking. "You are one of them." "I was." The sounds of battle faded around them. The forest had won, for now. The remaining invaders retreated, dragging what machinery they could salvage. Drex would not forget this night. Kale remained on his knees. Marena stepped forward, her animals tense but obedient. "Why did you lower your weapon?" "Because you were right to fight," he said. "And because I've never seen anything like you." She raised an eyebrow. "That is not a reason." "It is to me." The queen studied him. His armor was cracked, his eyes no longer glowing. He was not like the others. Not anymore. She turned to Ashka. "We will take him. If he lies, I will know." Ashka gave a low grunt and stepped back. Kale looked up, stunned. "You trust me?" "No," Marena said. "But the forest does not fear the wind." She turned, her animals following, and Kale rose shakily to his feet, stepping into the trees with her. Behind them, the stars watched. And far above, the Zern fleet stirred, preparing for war. But the queen was no longer alone. And the wild had claimed a new ally. Kale awoke to birdsong and the scent of damp earth. He lay on a bed of moss beneath a canopy of woven vines, filtered sunlight dancing across his face. His armor had been removed, cleaned, and neatly placed beside him, untouched but not discarded. Around the clearing, animals watched him with wary eyes, a lynx blinking from the shadows, a squirrel perched on a low branch, even a fox circling silently. "You're lucky," came a familiar voice. Kale turned. Queen Marena stood at the edge of the glade, silhouetted by morning light. She wore a robe of leaves and stitched bark, a crown of twined vines resting gently atop her curls. Her expression was unreadable, but not unkind. "You slept in a wolf den last night," she said. "And survived." Kale sat up slowly, his muscles sore. "Wasn't sure if I was prisoner or guest." "That depends," she replied. "Are you still loyal to your kind?" He looked down at his hands. "They're not my kind anymore." She stepped closer, crossing the glade with fluid grace. "Then help me stop them." Kale hesitated. "They won't stop. Commander Drex will double down. The Zern Collective always does. They see resistance as weakness. He'll bring orbital fire next. Burn this entire forest to get what he wants." Marena's jaw tightened. "And what is it he wants?" "Your roots," Kale said grimly. "The energy buried beneath them. There's power here, old, wild, raw. Something your people protect, and his people can't control." Marena nodded slowly. "The heartwood." Kale frowned. "You know." "The forest showed me," she said softly. "It lies deep beneath the oldest tree. We call it the firstborn. The source of all green life. If they touch it, the forest will wither, and so will every living thing born of it." Kale stood. "Then we can't let them get close. I know how to disable their tech. But I'll need your magic, and your trust." Marena looked into his eyes. "Trust must be earned." He nodded. "Then let me earn it." The next days passed in a blur of preparation. Kale trained with the animals, teaching them to dismantle alien weapons and avoid energy nets. Marena guided him to the hidden places of the forest, glades filled with whispering stones, rivers with ancient spirits that spoke through ripples and rain. At first, the animals growled at Kale's presence, suspicious and tense. But as he showed patience, care, and cleverness, the tide began to shift. Ashka, the wolf leader, let him walk beside him. Temmie stopped hissing. Even the bear cubs let him share their berries without protest. Marena watched this quietly. One evening, she led him to the highest peak above the canopy. The stars blazed overhead, clear and close. Below, the forest shimmered like a dark green sea, dotted with flickers of fireflies. "This is where I come to listen," she said, settling onto a mossy rock. "The trees remember. The stars remind." Cale sat beside her, slower, unsure if he was welcome. She didn't stop him. "Back on my ship," he said, "we weren't allowed to look at the stars unless we were plotting a course. They were data points, not wonder." Marina tilted her head. "You've forgotten how to see." He looked at her. "You make me want to remember." She met his gaze, and for a long moment, neither of them spoke. There was something between them, something quiet, but growing, like roots beneath soil, reaching for each other. "I still don't understand," Cale said finally. "Why you spared me." Marina's voice was soft. "Because even the forest doesn't close its doors to a lost soul." That night, Drex launched his assault. Massive walkers with plasma cores thundered through the northern ridge, scorching the earth. Drones darkened the sky, mapping, scanning, preparing for full extraction. But Cale and Marina were ready. Hidden in the trees, the Queen summoned the forest's defense. Vines erupted from the ground like snakes, tangling the walkers' legs. Tree trunks split open to reveal swarms of stinging insects, bred in secret hives. Wolves moved in packs, coordinating like elite hunters. Cale moved through the chaos, hacking drone signals with stolen tech. He climbed one of the walkers and jammed its targeting system with a moss-covered root bundle, redirecting its beam to fire into the empty sky. Drex snarled from the command tent, watching his invasion falter. "Where is Cale?" he growled. "Gone rogue," his lieutenant replied. "He fights with them." Drex smashed the console. "Then we kill him too." Cale and Marina reunited at the firstborn tree, a titanic ancient oak with bark like stone and a crown that touched the clouds. The heartwood pulsed beneath its roots, guarded by a circle of glowing stones. "They're coming for this," Cale said, panting. "Then we make our final stand," Marina replied. Suddenly, a beam of blue fire shot toward the firstborn. Marina raised her arms, summoning a shield of shimmering leaves. The blast struck it, and rebounded skyward. Drex stepped into the clearing, armored and furious. "You," he snarled at Cale. "You betrayed the future of the collective." "No," Cale replied, stepping in front of Marina. "I chose one." Drex lunged, blade drawn, but Marina's vines caught his legs, and Cale slammed him to the ground with one clean strike. Drex groaned, disarmed. Marina stood over him, eyes blazing with emerald light. "Leave, or the forest will bury you." Drex hesitated, then vanished into a pulse of static, teleporting away. The battle was over. The forest had won. As dawn broke, the Queen stood beside Cale beneath the firstborn. The birds had returned. The air smelled sweet again. "You didn't have to stay," she said. "I didn't want to leave." She smiled, small but real. "The forest has accepted you. And you." She stepped closer. "You've earned your place, Cale of the Wild." Their hands touched. The heartwood glowed brighter beneath the earth. The forest healed in whispers. Where once scorched earth and broken roots marked the northern edge, now new growth unfurled in emerald spirals. Saplings rose where plasma fire had fallen. Birds returned to the branches. Rivers that had run dark now shimmered like polished glass. And yet, something deeper had changed. It wasn't just the land. It was the Queen. Marina stood beneath the firstborn tree at sunrise, eyes closed, palms pressed against its vast bark. She was no longer just the guardian of the forest. She was becoming something more. The battle had awakened something ancient within her, a deeper connection to the heartwood's life force. The forest didn't just respond to her anymore. It flowed through her. Cale approached quietly, now dressed in leathers and woven fabrics, his former armor long discarded. His movements were easy, familiar with the land now. Birds no longer scattered at his step. Even the foxes trotted past him with casual indifference. She turned, sensing him before he spoke. "You feel it, don't you?" he asked. Marina nodded. "The heartwood stirs, as if it dreams again." Kale moved closer, his expression cautious. And dreams can be dangerous. Morena's gaze flicked to him. Not all dreams. Some grow into legends. He smiled faintly, then turned serious. There's something I need to tell you. She arched a brow. Drex isn't gone. She sighed. I expected as much. He transmitted a distress beacon before he fled. It won't take long for the Zern fleet to respond. And if they send more than scouts, he trailed off. We'll protect the Heartwood, she said calmly. With roots and vines? He asked gently. This time, they'll come from orbit. They'll burn everything from the sky. Morena looked up. Through the canopy, the stars still lingered, faint in the lightening sky. Cold, bright, unblinking. They forget, she whispered, that the forest was born of stardust. She walked a slow circle around the base of the firstborn, hands outstretched. There is a choice now. The Heartwood has strength to offer. Power, ancient and wild. But it comes with a price. Kale watched her closely. What price? Transformation, she said softly. I can bind the forest to the stars. Shield it. But I will no longer be only of this world. He stepped forward. You mean, leave? No, she said. I mean become both. He took her hands, gripping them tightly. You don't have to do this alone. Morena smiled. You already chose your side, Kale. I never asked you to. You didn't have to. A silence bloomed between them, gentle, full of things unspoken. Then the sky rippled. A low hum rolled across the land, subtle at first, then rising like a storm. Kale's head snapped upward. A streak of metal shimmered overhead, sleek, massive, unmistakable. The fleet had arrived. Morena turned toward the firstborn. It's time. The Heartwood revealed itself like a dream breaking open. Morena led Kale into the roots of the firstborn, down a spiraling path only she could walk. Crystals lined the tunnels, pulsing with a rhythmic glow. The air was thick with energy, not like fire, but like life waiting to be born. At the center lay the Heartwood, a radiant core of intertwined roots, glowing with a light older than the stars themselves. It pulsed with slow, steady power, like the beating of the world's heart. Kale stood in awe. It's beautiful, he whispered. Morena stepped forward, placing her hands upon the glowing roots. The energy surged into her, washing over her skin like sunlight and shadow. Her robe fluttered without wind. Her eyes burned green-gold. The forest answered her touch. Then she reached back. Kale, she said, voice deeper now, will you stand with me, not just as warrior, but as equal? As keeper. He hesitated only a moment, then placed his hand beside hers. The Heartwood opened. Light engulfed them both, searing and soft, cracking reality like thin ice. Kale felt his body changing, not breaking, not burning, but expanding. He could feel the forest now. Every tree, every breeze. He heard the roots speaking. And through it all, her. Morena. Not just a queen. A starborn sovereign. Together, they rose from the Heartwood. Above the canopy, the sky darkened. Ships broke atmosphere, weapons glowing. The Zern fleet hovered like a metal god, silent and cold. And then the forest moved. Roots erupted from the ground, stretching impossibly high, twisting into the air, forming spiraling towers of bark and crystal. Trees grew in seconds, massive and radiant, their leaves absorbing energy beams and redirecting them as bursts of harmless light. The Heartwood had become a living shield. And standing at its center, Morena and Kale. Transformed. He was cloaked in bark armor, arms lined with golden veins of forest light. She floated just above the roots, her hair flowing like wild vines, her voice booming in the minds of all. You came for conquest. You will leave with nothing. This world is not yours. One of the lead ships opened fire. The beam struck the shield and dissolved. And then the trees answered. Not with weapons. Not with destruction. But with song. A resonance echoed from root to leaf to sky, a hum of creation, of unity. The invaders heard it and fell still. Machinery faltered. Commands failed. Pilots wept without knowing why. It was a sound not meant to destroy, but to remind. Life does not belong to machines. It belongs to those who love it. The Zern fleet left in silence. No shots. No final threats. Just retreat. And peace. Weeks passed. The forest bloomed brighter than ever. Flowers unknown to science bloomed in spirals. The animals walked freely, unharmed, unafraid. In the center of it all stood the new sanctuary, an intertwining of tree and starlight, grown around the firstborn like a crown. A place of balance. Of protection. Kale stood on a high balcony, watching the birds soar above. Marena approached from behind, her presence as natural to him now as breath. He turned, smiling. "You ever think we'd end up here?" She smiled back. "Not once." They stood in silence. Then she said, "You're a part of this now." "Of me." He reached out, brushing a leaf from her shoulder. "And you're in my blood." She leaned in, forehead to his. "Together, we are forest. We are sky. And always," he said, "we are home." Below them, the wild sang. And the stars listened.